Hello everybody. Oh, did you hear that? Our oven is already ready for this class. My name is Melissa. I'm HealthAware's registered dietitian and personal trainer. Welcome to our very special plant-based dessert class. I'm very excited to be here for this class. Desserts are one of my favorite things. Fortunately or unfortunately. So I always love figuring out vegan ones, turning some of my favorite recipes into vegan ones or plant-based ones, or just discovering new plant-based or vegan desserts. So I have two recipes to share with you today, both of which I love very much. I just want to give one quick disclaimer. As last week, the same thing, long story. My cats have to be in the kitchen with me today, so I apologize in advance if they get in the way, interrupt. I will do my best to kind of keep them out of the way. Hopefully they will stay away. They are watching birds through the window right now, which I call cat TV. So that I just wanted to let you know. Other than that, we can get started. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to post the recipes into, I almost forgot, I'm going to post the recipes into the comments of this video. So let me do that really quickly. I sent out the recipes through email to those who requested them, but I also like to make sure that I include the recipes on the video just in case someone's watching that didn't get the email, or if you lost it. Okay, whoops. There's the first one, check. And then I will get our second one. Copy and paste. Now we're ready. So both of those recipes should be in the comments if you would like to refer to those, or if you have them already. Also, if I didn't say welcome live to those who are watching, and also if you're watching the recorded version later, welcome to you as well. I have my camera sort of precariously tipped down a little bit, so maybe you can see what I'm doing better. So if it falls, that's why. All right. We're ready to get started. As you heard the beep of the oven when this video started, everything is ready to go. The first recipe we're going to do today is the lemon cookies, the vegan chewy lemon cookies. This is a favorite in our household. My husband, they're his favorite cookies that I make. They also travel very well, so if you want to ship some cookies, similar to the cookies we made last week, the molasses ones, these lemon ones are sturdy enough to withstand traveling in a box in the mail. There was something else I was going to mention about these, but I'll think of it. Oh, I wanted to say if you do have any questions about any of these recipes or just vegan plant-based desserts or baking in general, please feel free to ask that in the questions or in the comments section. I will do my best to answer all those either live, or I can type in an answer later if you're watching the recorded version of this. Okay, I think that was everything. So we're starting with our cookie recipe. We've got 2 bowls, and I've got all my ingredients here. So we're going to start with the dry ingredients, adding all of those, there's just 3 of those into the larger bowl. So I've got here 2 cups of all-purpose flour, nothing special about this one. 2 cups, I already measured it for us, so we didn't have to wait for that. And then we're doing the baking powder. Make sure it's baking powder, not baking soda. We're gonna do a teaspoon of this, ooh, squeaky, baking soda, baking powder, not baking soda. Teaspoon baking powder. Would love to see you. Oh, how about at the end of the video, if you're all still here watching, I will move the camera so you can see my cats. How does that sound? Okay. Back to the recipe, we're doing a half teaspoon of salt, just regular table salt, right in there. You'll notice I'm not whisking any of these ingredients. It's not super necessary with cakes, things like that. I will I'll sift the flour. With this, we can just whisk. That works completely fine. I just like to make sure that all 3 of the ingredients in the dry side get totally combined. You want to make sure the salt and the baking powder definitely aren't just in one place. So whisked all together, just like that. Then we're going to move on to the wet ingredients. So for this one, we are doing a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, just regular granulated sugar. I think this one's organic, whatever you choose, right into our bowl. And then we are doing our coconut oil. So couple notes on this one. I forgot to add this in the notes of this recipe. It is in the notes of the other recipe about the type of coconut oil to use. So this is the type of coconut oil I typically, can you see that? I typically buy. It's inexpensive, easy to find because I get most of my groceries from Trader Joe's. So this is the Trader Joe's organic triple filtered coconut oil. When you're choosing a coconut oil for this, for cooking, baking, if your item is going to be coconut flavored, it doesn't matter. But if you are doing something other than that, you want to make sure that you get the refined or the filtered. They kind of mean the same thing. Refined or filtered coconut oil. As I said, I have that in the note of the other recipe because there is a little coconut oil in that one. So the unrefined coconut oil, that's just kind of coconut oil and it smells like coconut. So make sure it is the neutral smelling kind. You'll know the difference if you smell them. We're going to do a 1/2 cup. I've got the wrong measuring cup. A 1/2 cup. This is a 1/4 cup. I'm gonna do 2 of these. So a 1/2 cup into here. You will also see that the recipe says melted. There's nothing fancy I do to melt the coconut oil. Sometimes if it's warm enough outside, your coconut oil will just be melted already in your cupboard, which is kind of handy. But on days like today where it's not as warm, I just remove the lid. The lid is metal, do not put the lid in the microwave. And I just microwave the entire jar, no matter how much is in there. I usually start with 30 seconds. And if it's halfway full like this one was, it completely melts it with just 30 seconds. If it's a completely full jar, it probably will take about a minute. But I do it 30 seconds at a time. Okay, coconut oil, check. Next ingredient we're doing is agave. I use agave rather than maple syrup in this recipe because maple syrup tends to have a little bit of maple flavor, so I use agave. Doesn't really matter which kind, blue, golden, whichever. Agave tends to have a more neutral flavor than maple syrup. So we want to be able to really taste the lemon in these cookies, not maple. So agave goes into there. I don't know if that'll stay, but next we have fresh lemon zest. I already went ahead and zested it for us, so you don't have to watch me do that. I use a microplane to zest my citrus. If you don't have a microplane, I highly recommend getting one. Typically to get 1 tablespoon, it's 1 or 2 of the small, medium-sized lemons. Sometimes it'll be 1 of the big ones, but I would always get 2 just on the safe side. Then we have the final ingredient, just a tablespoon. You can't even see it, it's so little, but a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. If you're using the same lemons, I suggest zesting first and then juicing, okay? So there's not actually a lot of lemon product in this recipe, and yet that is the flavor you taste when you eat these cookies, but it doesn't take much. When you're zesting, oh, and then we're just gonna whisk this all together, okay? When you're zesting your lemons, make sure that you only zest the yellow part, the actual skin, the rind, the outside. Once you start zesting the white part that's underneath, that's when it starts to get kind of bitter. So you want to make sure that you don't zest too far into the actual lemon, just the yellow. Plus the yellow's prettier in the cookies. All right, quick little stir. So it's all combined mostly, give or take. And we're just going to add it into our flour mixture. Get all of that in. Hopefully not making a huge mess. There we go. Hopefully that won't fall. Then I just use a wooden spoon, large wooden spoon, to stir this all together, just until it's combined. This recipe, if you've ever made shortbread, this is a somewhat similar type of cookie to a shortbread. So the dough, to me, kind of looks that way a bit. It's not, you can see it's somewhat dry looking. So just keep mixing it until the flour is all incorporated. Woo! You didn't see that. I'm gonna put that back into our bowl. So be careful when you're mixing. There we go. It wasn't too much, don't worry. Okay. So be careful when you're mixing. Get the flour as best as incorporated as you can. If it's not all totally incorporated, that's fine. With these cookies, we kind of press them together in our hands to get them to really form the shape that we want. So it's not like you're scooping out batter. You'll notice it's decently crumbly, okay? Not all together in one 10-second roll, one liquid batter, 10-second roll. It's on my counter. My counter's clean. It's not the floor, right? Thankfully. Maybe that's why the floor is only 5-second roll. Okay, I'm going to move all of this out of our way so that we can start making the dough. That's it. That's the entire cookie recipe. And then I will show you how to do the actual cookie rolling. All right. So you will need for this, let me get these out of the way too. Oh, itchy nose. Okay. What you'll need for this, I use a cookie scoop. This is 1.5 tablespoons. Then you need your baking sheet with parchment paper on it or silicone baking mat, whichever you like. I do use these air bake sheets. So they kind of look a little bit different. I find that I get the best results with these. I explained that on last week's class too, that this is just the best type of baking sheet I have found. I need gloves. There we go. Try to save a little bit of mess. You will also need, you'll see in the ingredients, 1/4 cup of a coarse type of sugar. I typically use the Trader Joe's organic cane sugar, I think it might be called. It's just the sugar, whatever they sell there. It tends to be a little bit more coarse. It's the same one that I use for the outside of the ginger cookies as well. It gives it a little bit of a nice kind of sparkle on the outside. These cookies, so about the amount of scoop, that amount in the scoop, and then I'm pressing it together so it forms a ball. Okay, pressing it all the way together, and then just, these gloves are huge, rolling around in the sugar and onto the baking sheet. These cookies should not spread very much at all in the oven while you're baking. So for me, depending on the size of baking sheet you have, you should actually be able to fit all of them on there. I should be able to fit all of mine onto this cookie sheet. So that's kind of the nice thing, is that they really don't spread, and so they really kind of are somewhat of a shortbread type cookie. They sort of hold that shape. So this will just take me a moment. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking about whatever I want to talk about while I roll all these. These cookies take 12 minutes to bake, as you'll see in the directions. I also wanted to mention about the lemon. So the lemon that we use in this recipe, these that I have today are just regular lemons. I think they're organic lemons that I just got from Trader Joe's. But I have made these cookies with Meyer lemons, which if you've had those, if you're all in California, I'm assuming that you have. Those were sort of those were a new discovery to me when I started living in California. So Meyer lemons taste really nice in these cookies as well, because it's just slightly different. You could even zest a little bit of orange if you wanted to have more of a full citrus. Let's see, how big are those cookies after baked? Wow, I will show you. So we are going to bake these today while we're here, since they only take 12 minutes, but I do have a already baked batch. So I will show you the final result. Size, like inch-wise, like maybe two inches diameter, 2 inches across maybe. So they're not massive cookies. They are somewhat on the thick side-ish. So that's why we can space them pretty close together. They're not gigantic cookies. And it depends on how many you'll get out of this recipe by obviously how big you scoop them. This is probably in the 2 tablespoon realm because my scoop is 1.5 tablespoons, but I'm doing a little bit larger than just the scoop. So roll each one, make sure each one is totally covered all the way around. It doesn't have to be a thick layer of sugar or anything, but when they bake, you can still see the sugar on them and it looks kind of nice. How can you mix lemon in a little? Oh yeah, so I've never actually done these with lime. I've done them with lemon and orange, but never lime. I'm sure, I suppose that you definitely could, to kind of have more of that lemon lime sort of cookie. I know that orange works. I'm sure lime would be fine. I would probably do lime zest rather than lime juice. I don't know that it would matter too much, but I prefer lemon flavor over lime flavor, so if you were to add lime, I would just do a little bit of zest in that one. So I've got enough for just one more cookie. Has anyone been counting how many I'm making? I'll count them for us. Orange by itself. I've never done orange by itself. I've always mixed them. I'm not sure what the result will be if it's only orange. I'm sure it would still be a pretty decent cookie. It would probably be a little bit different. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I've only ever mixed them or done just lemon. Okay, thank you for the questions. So we made 12 actually. It looks like we made 12 today. Just the way it goes. Now, you'll notice the next step on the recipe is that we do have to press these cookies down. Can you see? I think you can see this. So I use both hands to press down. It gets a little tiring because the dough is decently firm, but I press down with my 3 middle fingers mostly, and we press the cookies down so they kind of have a cross pattern on them. So I press down and then I press down the opposite way. The goal is to kind of get them as close to even as possible. As you press down, the edges will crackle. These are not perfectly round cookies. So press down, and then the opposite direction, press down. Your fingers will probably get tired. I'd get tired. Let's see. I have made orange cookies, and it was hard to get the orange taste to come through. Yes, that's actually exactly what I was thinking. Lemon is a relatively strong flavor without very much. So totally replacing it with orange would probably make a more mild cookie. But if you added a little bit of zest along with the lemon, you might be able to kind of enhance that citrus. Enjoy recipes. Do you have a book or email? I don't actually have a book. We were talking about this. We said we should put all these, put these recipes into a book. I do actually have a website. I do actually have my own recipe website that I've had for 6 years, I think now. The earlier recipes were not all plant-based. Some were just vegetarian ones. Yes, so at the end of class, I can add the link to my website with all, this recipe is actually on there. I can add the link to my website if you are interested in going there and seeing other recipes that I have that I've made. There's pictures on there, which is kind of nice. I take the pictures to help illustrate what we're making. So yes, I will put that in the comments. If I forget, someone needs to remind me. Is that parchment paper? Yes, you're welcome. Yes, this is parchment paper, regular parchment paper. You can also use those nice silicone baking mats that they have these days. I have those too. They're just a little smaller, and I hate cleaning them. I hate washing those. Yes, yeah. So I use parchment paper a lot. Yeah. So we're done with that. Now we put these into the oven. So I'm gonna pop those in at 350. That's what our oven is at. You can see those. Okay, so they're about, you can't really tell, but they're about a 1/2 inch thick. Okay, pressed down. Pop these in. Set a timer. Yeah, I figured out how to use the microwave timer just for this class because I've baked things and I never have a timer on it because I usually use my phone, which I'm talking to. So figured out the microwave timer. All right, now that those are baking, I am going to wait until they're done baking to show you the final result. So I'll show you those as well as the ones that I made previously, so you can see the final. Okay, now we're gonna move on to our cheesecake recipe. Let me get all of our necessary ingredients, all our equipment. This one does require a little bit more equipment. Food processor and a blender is what you will need. We'll start with the food processor. So you can see this recipe does have a little bit more ingredients, a little bit more of directions. I love making vegan cheesecakes. I think that they are delicious and I don't know, I just like making them. However, they are not necessarily the best. They're not a low-calorie food, I guess we should say. You'll notice in the nutrition info that I have on the recipe, they're not super low-calorie, these, because they're made with cashews, which are nuts that have a lot of calories in them. So, not necessarily low-calorie. For this recipe, I use a springform pan. If you're not familiar with one of these, you can use a cake pan or a pie pan. It'll be a little bit different. But a springform pan, the sides and the bottom are actually detachable. Okay, so when you have the cheesecake, you can easily slide it out so that the edges are all exposed and it's easier and nicer to cut. So I always make my cheesecakes in a springform pan. If you don't have one, I highly recommend them. I also like to use I cut this, just a little circle of parchment paper. A little circle of parchment paper. I put it into the bottom of the springform pan because the crust sticks to it or can stick to it. So I try to make it as easy as possible, put the parchment paper down the bottom. We're going to make the crust first. Only 3 ingredients, barely 3 ingredients. So let me grab those. The first ingredient we use is dates. I already took the time to break them apart and make sure they didn't have any pits in them. Usually when you buy them, they are pitted. They don't have pits. Those have already been removed, but once in a while you get a little piece in there. So this is 1 cup of dates. I got them at Trader Joe's in the produce section. It's about 12 large dates if you don't have a measuring cup, but it's about 12 large dates. So I put those inside our food processor. Where's my lid? There it is. And we process those first, okay? So we process them just for a few seconds so that they break down most of the way, and you'll actually see a big ball then start rolling around. So if you can mute your computer if this is loud, but just give us a few seconds here to get these going. Did you see my cat there just for a split second? He doesn't like this. Scared him away. So you'll see that it has formed into just a sticky ball in the food processor. Then we're going to add, this is 1.5 cups of walnuts. Raw walnuts is what I use. You could probably use the toasted kind. That's totally fine. I would suggest probably not the salted ones, just raw or unsalted. Toasted would be probably ideal. Okay. I also like to add just a tiny bit of salt, like really truly just a tiny pinch, because there's not too much going into this. The salt just kind of helps break up the sweet that comes from the dates, okay? So I'm going to pulse this around just for a few more seconds and it comes together pretty quickly. So here we go. Enough. You want it to just go until it's a very coarse type of meal. There we go. So I will show you, hopefully without dumping it everywhere. I think you can see that. So it's a relatively coarse meal. When we put it, we'll put it into here, and you'll notice when we press down that it does stick together. It's not just a crumbly crust in there. I'm gonna grab another pair of gloves. If you have not invested in a 500 pack of these disposable gloves, I highly recommend doing so. It makes cleanup much, much easier. Okay, so just directly into here, we add our crust ingredients without making too much of a mess, hopefully. it will be kind of sticky, so that's why I like to use the gloves. I just find that it helps a little bit. So I will show you when we're done because you can't really see this very well, but trying to evenly spread it out on the bottom of the pan, and it will go just barely up the sides, like a centimeter, kind of like barely up the sides. It's not the full height of the pan or of the cheesecake filling even. If you are using a different pan, oh, this is a 9-inch pan, by the way. I think I mentioned that. Yeah, this is 9-inch, a 9-inch springform pan. So depending on the size of the pan that you have, or if it's a pie pan, it might be a totally different story. So I like to press around the edges just to make sure it's kind of packed in there. And the edges tend to get right in the corners a little bit thicker. Ooh, that was unpleasant. And then press everything kind of into the sides. So I do have one of these that's already made. Sometimes it can stick to the edges a little bit. So you could actually freeze this. Once it's all firm in the fridge, you could actually freeze it for a little while, and freezing it usually helps it come off of the pan a little bit easier. We'll see. We may have a total disaster with our other one, but hopefully not. Okay, nice pressed down, done with these. Oh my goodness. So you can see. Pressed down, you can see it's barely up the edges. Pushed down, that's all we do with this. So we set this guy, I'll put it over here, off to the side. You could put it in the fridge if you wanted to, just to give it even, keep it more firm while we make the rest, but it's not that necessary because we'll be pretty quick. Our next appliance, moving on now, we're going to make the filling. So for the filling, I do use a Vitamix. You could use a regular blender if you want to. Totally fine, whatever you have. Okay, so to make our filling, this is not our filling. To make our filling, the first thing you'll notice way back, the first step of the recipe is to soak your cashews. I've already gone ahead and done that. What I typically do, I fill a bowl about halfway with water. I microwave it for 2 minutes. So it's really hot, not boiling hot, but it's very, very hot. And then I add the cashews. I use cashew pieces in halves, not the whole cashews, because it takes longer to soak them, I think. So I just use the pieces in halves, doesn't really matter. Ooh, I don't know if you can actually see that. There we go, maybe just a little bit. So I have mine in the water an hour. You could do it for longer, it doesn't really matter. It just kind of helps them break down easier in the blender. So I'm gonna drain these off and give them a quick rinse in the sink. Quick rinse. Okay, so there we go. Have our cashews back. You can kind of see those. So they are softer, and I'm gonna actually save these to add into the blender in a moment. I do list the ingredients in the order that I would prefer to add them in. I usually add the liquid stuff first, like the milk, just to try to prevent the cashews or the chocolate really sticking to the blender. Thank you. I'm also going to melt our chocolate chips. So I have 3/4 cups of chocolate chips in here. I'll talk about those chocolate chips in just a minute. So I'm gonna microwave these. There we go. Kind of battling with the microwave timer. Okay, Microwaving those, I do it in 30-second increments. We want them to be completely melted, but we can stir them to melt them a little bit more. Let me get this out of the way. Sorry. All right, so we're gonna add stuff into our blender. Almond milk is first. This is a 1/2 cup of unsweetened almond milk. I always use unsweetened. Extra sugar in this is super not necessary. So unsweetened, always unsweetened. Next, I'm doing the maple syrup. I have 1/2 cup of a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. I apologize. A 1/4 cup of maple syrup is going into here. Okay, and then we have 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. And then we're doing a teaspoon of the pure vanilla extract. Make sure, I like using pure vanilla extract, not the imitation. I know I've talked about that before on these classes. I know it's a little more expensive, but I think it's worth it. All right. And then, we need our coconut oil as well. Let me check on our chocolate chips. So you can see that they're still pretty chocolate chippy. They're not melted yet. So we're gonna give these another 30 seconds. In the meantime, our cookies are done. So here's our cookies. I'll let them cool for just a few minutes. There's a lot of moving pieces in this class, isn't there? All right, our chocolate chips will be done in just a moment. We may as well, in the meantime, we're gonna put our cashews into this. They might have a little bit of water left in the bowl. I think mine do, so I try to not dump all the water into the bowl. There we go. And also, like the walnuts, you really want to make sure that these ones are raw cashews, not salted or toasted. Not salted or toasted, raw cashews, okay? I'm allergic to top chocolate. Oh no! You know, it's funny, I've met a few people that are allergic to chocolate, but I've also met a few people that have told me that they're like chocoholics. So we have the whole spectrum here. Checking the chocolate chips. We're gonna give them 30 more seconds, so about 1.5 minutes total is what you're gonna do. Lindy, I thought you were gonna say that you're allergic to cats, and I was like, well, no one's gonna taste this one here anyway, so phew, but chocolate, love your OP kitty. Thank you. Okay, chocolate chips are almost done. My cats have attachment issues, so they think they need to be everywhere that I am. So, okay, chocolate chips. Now we're in business. So these are, I'll probably dump them out if I try to show you, but these are, you can still see a little bit of the chocolate pieces, but once we stir it, they all kind of start melting together. So you want to make sure you get all of the chocolate pieces melted. I'm sure that most of you have melted chocolate chips before, but just in case. Just want to make sure it's completely melted. We're gonna add the coconut oil in next before we add the chocolate. I'm gonna let the chocolate just cool down a tiny bit. So we're doing 2 tablespoons. Try to do this without getting super messy. This is clean, don't worry. 2 tablespoons of the coconut oil. There you go. I also do want to mention about coconut oil, it's not something that I prefer people include every day. in their diets. Coconut oil has tons of saturated fat in it. It does come from a plant, of course. It is one of the few plants that has a lot of saturated fat in it. So it does actually, it is processed, I suppose we'll say. It is processed slightly differently in the body than saturated fat from animal-based foods, but it still can raise your cholesterol levels. So I use it in baking because it just helps for certain things. It's very useful for certain things, but we are making desserts, which shouldn't be everyday things anyways. So that's just my little soapbox about coconut oil, alternative to chocolate carob. I've never made these with carob. I don't know as much about carob. I've never been it's a little more bitter. It tastes differently, right? If it melts, then sure. Can you use something besides coconut oil? Okay, so I will say, I have made one of these cheesecakes. So when I did the cooking class for Thanksgiving, back in November last year, I made a pumpkin cheesecake, and I actually used avocado oil instead. I actually used avocado oil instead, and that one was fine. The coconut oil is a nice ingredient for cheesecakes because when coconut oil is chilled, when it's refrigerated, it is solid. Avocado oil, the other oils don't get solid when they are cold. So that's the one benefit of this. But if you have enough of the other ingredients, like the cashews and the chocolate itself, will get more hardened when it gets cold as well. So that's why I use the coconut oil, even just a little bit for this. Yes, but you definitely probably could use a healthier oil, like avocado oil would be a good choice. It's pretty neutral. So I'm gonna add the chocolate. I try not to get the chocolate on the edges of the blender if I can help it, just because it sticks to it. It's harder, you have to scrape it off to get it fully combined. So you notice a nice stream of chocolate is going in, nice and melted. Carob. If carob melts, I don't actually know much about carob, surprisingly enough. If carob melts, then I would say that you could probably try that. I've never tried that before though. Okay, all of our ingredients are in here now, I believe. I think we got everything. I'm gonna put the lid on. It'll be a little bit noisy, but we blend it just for about a minute. We'll see if we need that long. Make sure everything's turned on here. So we just want to make sure that all of the cashews are totally broken down. Hopefully you can hear me. While I was blending, I thought of that question about using different oil besides coconut oil. For the other cookies, they do have significantly more coconut oil as part of the ingredients. Those I have never tried with a different oil. I'm not sure how that would go. I will have to experiment with that, using maybe avocado oil for those. I've always used coconut oil, so I'm not sure how the other oils would turn out. If you try it, let me know. It may or may not work, but this is ready. So you can kind of see it is, I don't know if you can see, it's decently liquidy, mostly broken down. We don't want any big chunks of cashews in it. We want them blended into kind of a smooth, creamy type of consistency, of course. I am gonna move this out of our way. Okay, and then we'll add this into our crust. We have our crust waiting, so I'm just going to pour this into our crust. I need my spatula. This is, I will say, this is a very rich dessert, of course, because of all the amount of chocolate and everything in it. So you don't need huge amounts to feel like you've had dessert, which is the good thing. But very chocolatey, very rich. So we're adding this, I just pour it right on in. It's decently, it's kind of like a chocolate, a really thick chocolate smoothie, if you will, I suppose. So get all of it into the crust. And then we have one final component, and that is the chocolate ganache that we kind of make a swirl with. I want to say here, if you wanted to make a prettier type of swirl pattern, then I would wait to have both of the ganache and this and kind of do them sort of at the same time, because the ganache does make a decent amount as well, and so it doesn't make as much of a swirl. I'll show you the one that I made, and you can see. So it doesn't make like a small swirl. It's kind of, yeah, you'll like see. So if you wanted to make a pattern, I would do them at the same time. Get that out of the way. All right, so now we're going to make our ganache. If you've ever made regular ganache, so using regular milk or cream, it's the same concept pretty much. I have a third cup of the unsweetened almond milk. I'm going to put that into a little bit bigger of a microwave safe dish. If you, there we go. If you are the more Martha Stewart-y type, you could do this on the stove, but I am not such of a person, so I microwave this. Microwaving it for a minute, I think is what I said, a minute, to make it really warm. So I'm gonna put that in right now. And then when it's done, we add our chocolate chips. So this is a half cup plus 2 tablespoons of chocolate chips. I wanted to show you the chocolate chips. So you'll notice in the notes that I talk about there's different types of non-dairy chocolate chips. I found 3 brands so far that I like, that I've used for cooking, baking, I guess we should say. The first one is Trader Joe's. Their chocolate chips and the chocolate chunks, which might be some of these actually. Chocolate chips and chocolate chunks, those are actually vegan now. They do not contain any animal products. You want to look for milk or milk fat in the ingredient list. Usually the vegan non-dairy chocolate chips, the ingredients will be cane sugar, chocolate, and cocoa butter. That's usually it. Sometimes they'll have like soy lecithin or sunflower lecithin in them. Let me grab our milk. All right, super hot, it's steamy. I don't know if you can see that. So we're adding these in to the hot milk, and we stir until everything is completely melted. It does take a moment. It melts it melts at its own pace. So I'll keep talking while I stir these. So the chocolate chips. The Trader Joe's ones are kind of my usual standbys. Those are the ones that I use primarily, just because it's easy to get them there. The other brand that I also like is Enjoy Life. In the store you'll see it's a blue bag. I know they sell them at Sprouts, most likely at Whole Foods, and they also actually sell them at Target these days with the regular other chocolate chips. They actually come in mini chocolate chips as well, which I really like because that's what I like putting in my brownies, the mini chocolate chips. So that one's kind of a nice option. They're a little bit more expensive than regular chocolate chips would be. The Trader Joe's ones are actually a totally decent price. And then the final brand that I have listed on there is actually Nestle Toll House. They actually do have a vegan, non-dairy chocolate chip these days. It's a long name. I wrote it in there. It's Nestle Toll House Simply Delicious Semi-Sweet Chocolate Chips. I have the bag, so I wanted to show you what that one looks like in Target. That's where I have found them. In Target, it's right next to the Enjoy Life ones. Let me grab that bag. This is what they look like. There you go. And then this, you can see the ingredients. Only the 3 ingredients. And they taste just like chocolate chips. Put these away. So all of this is now melted. There's no chunks of chocolate. I'm gonna pour it out if I show you, but it's very, there we go, very liquidy, okay? Stir it up completely. So I'm just going to pour it over the filling that we already have. As I said, it's a decent amount, so it'll cover a lot of the topping. If you pour it, so with the one I made that I have already prepared for us, I poured it more slowly so it stayed more on top. But if you saw with this one, if you pour it so it pours down harder, it'll actually go into the bottom, so you can get a little bit more of a swirl. So, I'm gonna actually pick you up so you can come see. This is what we have right now. Woo! There we go. That's what we have right now. So what we will do, let me get you situated again. There we go. What I do is take a knife or a spatula, whatever you want, and just kind of make a few swirl patterns. Okay, good enough. Sometimes I will tap, an old trick I learned, I guess, when I was a kid. I tap out the air bubbles a little bit. Once you have it all ready like this, cover it with saran wrap or just in a pie container if you have one of those, a plastic pie container. Cover it, put it in the fridge at least 8 hours. You want to make sure that it is fully chilled and set. Longer is typically better. The one that I have to show you here today, I let stay in the fridge. It's been in there for just over 24 hours now. So let me grab that and then I'll show you the cookies too. This is the type of container that I use when chilling these types of desserts in the fridge. So it's very firm. This is what mine looks like. The one that I made today, there was more of the dark part underneath, okay? Now this is where the disaster may or may not happen. We're going to try to remove it. Try to remove it from the container. Woo! There we go. Phew! So that is what the sides, the top of the cheesecake look like. So about 24 hours, it's firm enough to remove it. I'm going to cut us a slice too, and then we'll show you the cookies. Here we go. Try not to make a total mess. There we go. So this is what it looks like. Hopefully you can see that. So a little bit of swirl in this one. This one we made today will probably have a little bit more of a swirl since more of it got underneath. So it stays totally firm like a cheesecake, which is just amazing. So that is our cheesecake. Any questions about that one? Let me know. Now I'm going to grab our cookies so you can see those. So the ones that we made today look like this. These are the ones I made yesterday. I just wanted to show you the difference, which is pretty much none. So these are the ones I made yesterday. These are the ones I made today, yesterday. Okay, these are what our cookies look like. About 1/2 inch thick. They're still warm from today, and they kind of have a glittery sort of look to them because of the sugar that we sprinkled on, which I think is kind of nice. And I think we made it. Boy, we used up our entire hour today. So thank you to all those who stuck with me through this entire class. I would love to know if you make any of these recipes. I think I may have enabled the ability for you guys to be able to post photos onto our health aware page here. So if you make any of these recipes, we'd love to see them. You can also tag us on Instagram. If you post it on there, we can see it, or just email us a picture. I love seeing your creations. And also I will post the link for my website. It's not affiliated with Health Aware, okay, it's just my own personal one, but someone asked if I had one of those. So I'll post that as well as soon as I finish this video. I think that was everything. I am so grateful that you all joined me this morning, almost afternoon now. I look forward to seeing you for the next cooking class in August. We're having another month of our online classes, so stay tuned for that calendar. Let me know if there's any recipes you'd like me to make. I will see. Oh, you wanted to see my cats. Okay, really quick. Really quick. This is Milo. Where is he? That's Milo. That's our neighbor cat that looks just like our cats. And then this over here is Kitty Wampus. Say hi, Kitty Wampus. There you go. All right. Bye.